Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a new series called The Pit, where I've got 20 minutes to walk you around everything that's happened within the LCS, all 10 teams, and some of the general news around it before Baron spawns and ends this video, quite literally. Starting with Cloud9, they are trying to make history, and I don't think people truly appreciate where they're sitting at. Cloud9 is currently sitting at 2 back-to-back LCS championships, going for a third. The last time a team got a three-peat in a row, Team Liquid 2018 through 2019. They would go on to win 4 in a row. Cloud9 would not only have to win this summer, but would also have to win the entirety of next year to then surpass Team Liquid as, quite frankly, the greatest team of all time. And if they were to do this via summer, spring, summer, they would also be the longest consistent roster. Oh wait, never mind, they changed players in between. Anyways, Cloud9's looking hot so far. Yes, their mid-game and early game can be a little bit iffy at times, but the second that 20 to 25 minute mark hits and you start getting into these later portions of the game team fights, they just look good. Yes, TSM had an advantage on them early, but you know what? They still closed it out pretty handily once they got control. Their rematch against Golden Guardians took care of it pretty easy. Yes, Golden Guardians had some chances, but overall, Cloud9's looking good. Blabber already making a name for himself in a potential MVP race. Yes, there's only 6 weeks of the LCS split, so yeah, we're going to be keeping track of MVP starting right away. Speaking of TSM, they're a weird one, so let's go on to the next. For those that missed the off-season news, TSM is likely in their final split of the LCS. They have stated their intention that they want to leave and go elsewhere, likely either the LPL or the LCK if rumors are apparently true. But we have no clue. But for now, they've got at minimum 18 games left in the LCS, and 2 of which they played against Cloud9 and Team Liquid, the only 2 teams that remain undefeated in the LCS. And you know what? They had a chance against both of them. That's insane to think about. This TSM roster, for the most part, is just kind of a bunch of guys that they picked up to get through the final season. Wild Turtle and Hansa are not 2 players that you look at thinking, yeah, these guys really have multi-year long potential here in the LCS. One of the horrendous moves that they made in the offseason was that they actually decided to sign Ruby, a mid laner who's not even here yet, which forced them to sign Insanity as a replacement. And I'm going to give the hot take now. Insanity should be starting for this roster the entire split. A perfect example of what is wrong with so many teams here in North America, that we would rather import talent like Ruby than give somebody like Insanity a chance, who has held his own against some of the best names in the LCS already. He looks phenomenal. Now, is that going to be sustainable forever? No, he's a younger player. Obviously, he should be given chances to screw up, to mess up. TSM is currently 1-2, but quite frankly, they look better than that record given the opponents that they played. So if you're a TSM fan trying to enjoy the highs and the lows of this ride, you should be pretty optimistic, all things considered. This roster could bring you some potential upsets if they can just piece it together and have a little bit better fights in the mid to late game, because they're putting themselves in the position to win. That's better than many others in the league right now. Speaking of shock factor, the roster that I don't think anybody would have expected to be undefeated going into their matchup on Friday is Immortals. Yes, them. They were 2-0 before getting absolutely obliterated in the highest goal difference game at 14 minutes that we've ever seen in LCS history against Team Liquid. But hey, at this point, it's TL. I would consider that a dub. I got the chance to talk to Kenvi after their Game 1 win on Wednesday, and he seemed pretty optimistic. Also touching on who is the best Kindred in North America. What was your favorite thing that you did in the offseason that is not video game related?
Me and my family just went to the beach and just have fun for a day, and that's a good time.
What do you think led to the very early success, and do you think you can maintain that the entire split long?
For me, I think I tell like what's like my comfortable for the team, and my team adjusted into that, and I'm like really comfortable and more confident, and that's why we just get free win.
If you were to have a 1v1 tournament between yourself, Blabber, and Piosik, everybody playing Kindred, do you think you could beat both of them?
I'm pretty sure I can beat both of them. I think Yoshik might beat me a little bit, but I can beat both of them for sure. 1v1.
Nice. Now, the honest truth about Immortals is that they should probably be 1-2. That first win over Dignitas, pretty good, but they got lucky in winning against NRG in their second game with a absurd gold lead throw from NRG, and then Friday, yeah, I don't think they need me to remind them again what just happened. But being 2-1 this early on in the split is a very good thing. Getting those early wins is incredibly important, especially when realistically this Immortal squad is probably going to be fighting for that 7th or 8th place spot in playoffs and trying to just make it and hold on and drive up brand value for the Immortals brand itself, because as of right now, I don't really see them as a title contender. Speaking of that throw against NRG themselves, first time being back in the league in almost a decade now, with a roster that was already 6th place coming off of last split, so you would just assume they're going to be pretty decent coming into this year. It didn't start off that hot. The initial opening game for them did not go well, and Ignar had some comments that should have reassured fans a little bit. What was your favorite thing that you did that has nothing to do with video games?
Driving. I think just driving my car. That was best. Yeah. I think we just done tilted from this game because I think this game was like we were at the good spot like really early. Like bot was winning, mid was winning, something like that. So we should just stabilize the game, and then I think we will be good.
I'm glad that this man enjoys driving, but there's one thing that NRG did not like doing, and that was driving with a 10k gold lead against Immortals. It was bad. Somebody's watering their plant from like 5 floors up, and it's literally just dripping down here. Like, that's actually gotta hurt if it lands on you. Regardless, NRG should actually be 2-1. They won a pretty convincing game over 100 Thieves in their final day, and probably should have won that game too, and kind of write off game 1 for what it was. So overall, NRG still looking pretty much exactly the same as they were at the end of spring, where you have some highs, you have some lows, and if they get hot at the right time, maybe they can cause some damage. But when they look off, they look really, really off. Okay, hear me out for this next one. Dignitas obviously didn't have the ideal start that they wanted for the LCS split. However, their support Diamond tipped me off to some information that might have caused their day 1 stomp that kind of happened.
Mapping in, I thought like we're like a top 6, top 5 team, just based on scrim results and how like we've been playing recently, and like our players, like we have really good top side. So I think we should be able to do well enough. I mean, today was definitely not a good show of that, but in my opinion, we just have to make it more simple and like incorporate more of like our top laner into our play. And I think, for example, for me today, I think I played really bad because I mean I don't want to blame, I don't want to excuse it, but I played really bad because my keyboard like was acting really weird. It's like, and like I have a ducky keyboard, and I don't have like it's a 60% keyboard, so it doesn't have F keys. And usually I use like Alt 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to like change to F keys, and then no worries. And then my keyboard, the numbers were F keys instead. So I was in lane and I was trying to pop a potion, and I just looked at top lane and I think 3 more autos, and it was yeah, I mean, I think we had other problems than just my keyboard. I'm gonna be like completely honest here. Like I think like we didn't do shit the whole game, so it was a weird game, you know. But it really fucked with my game.
Yeah.
But tomorrow I think I'll do a lot better.
So the question you then have to ask is, did they rebound? Was the keyboard truly the issue that prevented Dignitas from winning? And the answer, actually, maybe kinda, somewhat. They actually look pretty decent in their matchup against Cloud9. You're not going to expect Dignitas to beat Cloud9, obviously. Like, it's Dig, and it's Cloud9. But in their second game against EG, post that loss, the 3rd day of the LCS, they look pretty good, and they came out and won. A game where EG was 2-0, and everybody was riding high on them. But yet, Dignitas comes out and somehow beats them. So, they're sitting 1-2. And overall could have had some decent wins. I mean, we'll have to see if Jensen and Santorin continue to pick it up, because in their losses, the two of them don't really look good. Jensen specifically needs to step up massively, because right now his performance is quite frankly underwhelming. But this is a roster that, once again, you're not looking at them to win a split. However, if they can keep picking up games like this and potentially go on to maybe cause an upset in playoffs, that can change who goes to Worlds. And these are teams that you always want to keep an eye on. Golden Guardians, the 2nd place finisher of the spring LCS season. No roster changes. Pretty hype for some people coming in. did not start off hot at all. The only team starting off worse than them, FlyQuest. We'll get into them in a bit. And Golden Guardians' only win starting off, FlyQuest. The loss to Cloud9, you can somewhat write off. It was what it was, but they still haven't looked all that great if we're being honest. We'll see how they improve as time goes on and how the MSI hangover potentially affects them. But on a positive note for Golden Guardians, they actually hosted our LCS watch party here in New York City, and we gave away a jersey via rock, paper, scissors. Go ahead. Yeah, do the full messenger. That's why. Okay.
Let's go.
And he got it. The Golden Guardians jersey is all yours, my friend. Time to swap teams.
There's no flag, so they don't count on the wall.
There you go. A big thanks to Golden Guardians for hosting that. These watch parties in New York City tend to be a little bit more difficult because we're on weekdays and everybody has work and people can't really even get there until the third game at best, which makes me happy that they changed the schedule. But thank you again to Golden Guardians for making the apparel giveaways that we did there and the swag giveaways possible. In case you've been living under a rock or missed the fact that we have started the summer split, EG has almost an entirely different roster than what they had in spring. The only player remaining, JoJo. The filling out roster from there, Revenge, previously from Immortals. Armeo, who I think was in Academy, also backed up by Shieldon. ADC Unforgiven, the 100 Thieves Academy ADC, previously with Mad Lions before that, and went to Worlds notably. And in support, Ayla, the quote-unquote disgraced FlyQuest support player. But this roster is good, and by good, I mean, yes, they're 2-1 right now. They lost their game to Dignitas, which kind of sucks, but JoJo is already having an MVP level split. He is playing insanely well in all of these games, and honestly is just performing lights out. A lot of people are not going to like Evil Geniuses, the org, because of the actions of upper management, how they handled Danny, and a lot of questionable things ongoing, while the LCS is currently mid-investigation to see what happened with the Danny situation internally. We're still waiting on a final result, a penalty, whatever the hell's going to happen from that. We have no clue. But I will say this, you do not have to like the org to like the players here. If you truly do like how these guys are playing, especially JoJo and Unforgiven and Armeo and Sheldon and Revenge, support the players, cheer them on. You don't necessarily have to cheer on EG if you truly don't want to. One final note though for Evil Geniuses, please send your love and support to Revenge, whose grandfather passed away this past week. He put out a Twitter video saying that he's struggling a little bit, trying to balance everything and trying to go through the normal emotions of somebody passing. If you can, tweet out your support to him. FlyQuest, you in there? They're 0-3. They're like dead ass, like FlyQuest, like one of the best rosters that made an upgrade with Vulcan over Ayla, which even though Ayla's performing better right now, you would just assume this roster is like gonna go on to do great things. They're 0-3 and look really bad, like really, really, really bad. These are 5 players that realistically should not have 3 losses in a single week. I get this format is streaky and can cause teams that when you're in a rut, it just makes it worse. But I'm sorry, the skill ceiling of these players is like here, and they're performing here. So whatever issues that happened in the offseason clearly aren't resolved on stage. Papa Smithy notably tweeted out that, you know, it sucks to see the improvements that we saw in the offseason not translate to stage. So my question is this: does this team have major stage fright? Like, it's the same thing with like T1 and choking. Like, their mental just goes the second that something goes wrong at any sort of international event, which is why they haven't won in God knows how many years. And despite looking incredible domestically, they can never get it done. So is FlyQuest doing exactly that? And the moment that they get on stage, they just can't perform in the same capacity. I don't know. I hope they turn it around. It would suck to see this org that has invested so much attention and love to the League of Legends scene over the last year as they got new investment, have people like Ovally on board, have been putting out content. Like, oof. 3 words. Summit is back. And TL looks good. Really good. Like, best early game team in the LCS, bar none. Yes, they had some games where they struggled in the mid to late game to close it out, and things were a little bit closer than you would have thought. But then they just absolutely obliterate Immortals in the early game. Like, to fill people in case you're not on Twitter and don't see the rumors at all, TL was rumored to be the best team in the LCS prior to a single game starting in Spring Split. They were crushing everybody in scrims, apparently. Like, literal scrim gods. And it just couldn't click. The second that they stopped having mid-game leads or early game leads, they just didn't know what to do. They weren't coordinated. Pyosik, Summit, and Core JJ couldn't get on the same page. They weren't fighting together. Just the rookies just weren't fully cutting it, despite Yeon having really good laning stats. So if this is what we're going to be seeing, and this is the scrim team come to stage, oh my god, is every team in the LCS in trouble? Because they look unbelievable. I don't know. Summit, once again, MVP watch. He's back to that form. But hey, it's working. The question is going to be for Team Liquid. Can they keep it up? Consistency has always been their problem. And then there's 100 Thieves. Look, if you want to see an in-depth look into 100 Thieves, go watch my full video on it. I do a weekly recap series of all of their games because I'm a massive 100T fan. Things were looking great for them with the win against FlyQuest. They started falling off afterwards. But that's all the LCS teams, which means it's time to move on to our next segment called...
You know what really grinds my gears?
Weekdays. It's as simple as that. Viewership for the LCS has been abysmal, the lowest it has ever been. Worse than Call of Duty. I will talk about that in a full video come Wednesday. I'm going to compare all the stats to show you why Call of Duty is currently bigger than League of Legends in North America, just in terms of the esports. We obviously know the game of COD is just bigger in general. But we've got to get off weekdays. Like, it's got to go away. This was one of the worst decisions that has ever been made in the history of the league. I fought against it when the initial news came out. It was bad. I didn't understand what they were saying whenever it was like, oh, we have more available audience on weekdays to convert. You didn't do that. And I don't want to hear this BS argument of, oh, we didn't really get our time slot to fully capitalize on European viewers. I'm sorry, but fuck the European viewers. They have their own league. You need to focus on North American fans. And how many of us can watch the games when we're working or when people have school, or if I try and have watch parties here in New York City and people can't even get there until after game 3 because they got to commute in after their jobs. Like, what do you want us to do? Seriously, it grinds my gears to the fullest to think that you can have an online product that's just gonna work. You wanna know why COD succeeds over anything else, viewership numbers aside? Because they actively engage with their audience so much more than we do here for League of Legends in North America. We need an LCS commissioner now that is willing to come out and have these conversations, and quite frankly at this point, just have some sort of public town hall to talk to us. If you want to lay out the numbers and show me that, hey, you know what, weekends, it's not going to work anymore. We were losing too much viewership, and what happened now was inevitably going to happen on weekends as well. Sure, if you can prove that to me. But at this point, the data that you said that you were using to make this decision in the first place to swap us to weekdays because it, quote, had nothing to do with Valorant, was wrong. It was horribly, horribly wrong. So please, get us back to weekends. And if that can't happen because you don't want to move Valorant away from the studio, which I get, it's time to go remote. And I know a lot of fans are going to be really annoyed if you see an online remote broadcast. Oh, it's harder to get into for all this. Yes, then we need to make sure we're hitting the road more often than just 2 finals to engage with people. That's the only way you're going to be able to help overcome that. Otherwise, yes, people are going to tune out. Kelsey Moser brought up a great tweet that was, to everybody that's watching consistently and complaining about things, you don't need to basically solve for them because you're already watching. I heavily agree. It needs to be the people that we are not accessing. And I truly do believe this time and day change is a massive problem that's cutting people out that are currently not watching. Our final segment is called
So I am confusion.
And I'm confused at why people are upset with the LCS broadcast right now. It's the exact same as it was in Spring Split, but yet people are unhappy. So let's ask, what's different between this weekend starting off and spring starting off? It's the exact, oh, there's no influencers or players. I don't think people want to admit it, but quite frankly, I don't think you can have an LCS product that just simply doesn't have influencers or content creators in it anymore, because now people seem to be too used to it. They like the creativity that comes with them, and you cannot replicate that without them. So I don't know what the LCS needs to do in terms of getting people in there each and every week, but clearly I think that's the thing that fans are trying to say but can't figure out themselves, that quite frankly just the cast as is not doing enough for them. Even if the sketches are entertaining and the content's good,